Good afternoon. I'm Andrew. I've been a member of the bar for 25 years and obviously decided today that I would come dressed casually and in a relaxed fashion. No one told me you're allowed to do this. And I'm actually going on holiday this afternoon, so I've now got to dash home and get changed. So the whole thing, I apologise for conforming to your stereotype of what a 25-year called criminal barrister looks like. It is, I'm afraid, the way of the world. Ben and I are, in fact, today representing the only two criminal sets who are here. I think both of us would want you to take one very clear message away from you today, which is the criminal bar is thriving, is vibrant, and is still a hugely important part of the Bar of England and Wales. And we have tremendous confidence in our future, and for those of you who are interested in criminal practice, so should you. That is not to say that the landscape is easy. It is not. And I know that you will all be well aware of the problems and the challenges that face the criminal bar. It's right to say that since the removal of Mr. Grayling as our Lord Chancellor, the landscape appears to have improved considerably. And certainly we now have a Lord Chancellor, albeit one who yet again is not a lawyer, who at least appears capable of intellectually engaging with the argument. And that has been to the advantage of the bar as a whole, but particularly the criminal bar. I would hope that you would all agree that criminal law is part of what makes us a society, how we treat people who are accused of transgressing the rules that we put in place. It says a lot about us. The usual dinner party question you get asked as a criminal barrister is, how can you defend someone who's guilty? And in fact, I've been asked that today by somebody who I will embarrass later if I see him or her. And the answer is, surely we should judge a society by how we defend and deal with those who are alleged to have transgressed. It is easy to defend the popular. It is easy to stand in judgment of the abhorrent. But I think it is a tremendous challenge to do that and do it well and dispassionately. And the Bar of England and Wales is respected the world over because of the way in which we conduct our criminal justice. And you should be proud of that. And if you aspire to it, I would hope that through hard work and perseverance, you can be a part of it. So don't be afraid, but at the same time, be aware that the practice at the criminal bar is a vocation, not a job. You've all, I'm sure, as students, been used to carrying a huge amount of debt. That is a tremendous preparation for life at the criminal bar. Is the most important person you'll meet your pupil master, your head of chambers? No, it's not. It's your bank manager and your accountant. But in all seriousness, cash flow is always going to be challenging at the criminal bar, particularly for those who, like myself, predominantly defend and, again, predominantly rely upon publicly funded work. But that's not to say that you can't have a very rewarding life. Chambers are changing the structure of the bar, and chambers are fundamentally in a state of flux. But I was called 25 years ago, and at that time, the then Lord Chancellor, Lord Mackay, allowed solicitors to come into the Crown Courts for the first time, and everybody then was saying the criminal bar was going to die. And here we are, 25 years later, with a room full of people who still believe in the future as we do. The reality is there's always going to be change, always going to be challenges, but we provide something that is not an option. Crime is always going to be committed. Criminals are always going to need defending and prosecuting. So I think it's an area of law. Also, not an area of law that doesn't have very much law in it. I mean, a number of people think that the great thing about the criminal bar is you can just kind of wing it and make a speech, and it's a bit like the telly. I mean, we've had Silks, which was filmed outside my chambers and written by my head of chambers' former roommate at college. Before that, you had Judge John Deed, and if you're really ancient like me, you must remember Rumpole of the Bailey. And you all think, wow, that's how it is, because you go, you defend over lunch, you can go and solve the crime. We do a lot of crime solving actually over lunch, but mostly by reading and watching Netflix. But there is increasingly quite sophisticated legal argument going on up and down the country. The days of criminal practitioners not having paperwork are long since over. We now have digital case presentations, we are frequently required to put our legal arguments in writing before the courts, not just at the appellate stage, but in the lower court as well. And there is a move towards a degree of written approval of cross-examination. For example, Section 28 now sets out a procedure which is being trialled and which will roll out nationally, whereby child and vulnerable witnesses in sex cases are being cross-examined prior to trial on video, and you actually have to submit your list of questions to the judge for approval beforehand. So these are profound changes. It's not diminishing the role of the advocate, but it is challenging and changing. And as a junior practitioner, fundamentally, the biggest challenge you're going to have to cope with is people, is dealing with people who are going through what for them isn't just stressful, is potentially the worst experience of their life. Be they, if you're prosecuting, it could be a witness or a complainant, victim. If you're defending someone whose whole life, livelihood and reputation is in your hands. That is actually, if you stop to think about it for a moment, quite a huge responsibility. So although it is fun, and I would be lying if I said we didn't really have a great deal of fun and enjoy what we do, don't ever underestimate the seriousness of the responsibility that is put in your hands. And I think that also is part of why it is such a unique opportunity in terms of the practice of law. It's the level of advocacy, working day in, day out with people in extraordinary situations and helping juries and magistrates to arrive at the correct decision by the best presentation of evidence. What I would also say about the bar is that we are still collegiate in the sense that chambers have a strong culture. We certainly look to recruit not just people who can and will succeed, but people who will get on with each other. And we are more than just colleagues. Generally speaking, we are friends. And the broader bar has a richness of diversity, but also a support and kindness that often gets overlooked. You may well be arguing with someone in court, but rest assured, you'll be speaking to them on another day when the roles are reversed. And I know a number of you have got ethics exams recently, and for many years the code of conduct and the basic ethical standards of the bar have been based on the very simple precept that why on earth would you behave poorly and shabbily to somebody who you know and trust? The old convention about barristers not shaking hands arose from the fact that we inherently trusted each other, so you wouldn't have to demonstrate your trust. We now shake hands. Don't worry about that. But nevertheless, it is, again, a privilege to work in a profession with that level of trust. But that comes with time and with experience, and you shouldn't abuse that. But as I said, I can only encourage you all, if you do have an interest in crime, if you do have an interest in what makes us a society, I think a career at the criminal bar can offer a very, very diverse group of people to actually contribute something to a diverse society, and I think that's a very positive thing. I've probably rambled on long enough.
I was going to say, after the lengthy introduction from Andrew, as you know, I'm Ben Burge. I am currently a junior tenant at 5 St Andrews Hill, which is a predominantly criminal set just outside of Temple up towards St Paul's. Historically, a prosecution set, a lot of CPS work and a lot of government work from Home Office and HMRC, but increasingly more and more defence work, more and more extradition work that Chambers seems to be engaging itself with, and also a variety of other work that associates itself with crime, asset forfeiture, confiscation, condemnation hearings, all those sorts of things that you don't hear about at or on the bar course. But insofar as what Andrew's already said about the criminal bar being dead, the fact that we all drink water, eat bread, and live on the poverty line, I think the criminal bar, certainly the one I know, it is a little bit far removed from that, and certainly in the chambers I'm at, we don't hear people moaning because they're not in court. We don't hear people moaning because they're not earning money, because the reality is, as Andrew's already said, that there is a criminal bar, and people can and do make money, and people even make a living out of it. And in fact, quite a few people I knew seem to be able to make a living out of it, and seem to do very well in doing so. I think there's always going to be the reality of the fact that the criminal bar won't allow you to make the same amount of money that other people and other chambers in this pupillage fair would enable you to do. However, that's not to say that you won't earn a decent amount of money. Obviously, as Andrew has said, and as you've heard either from our two chambers today or from other chambers that you've had the opportunity to do mini pupillages at or have discussions with, it's a lot of hard work, and you get paid for doing that work, but that's not to say that it's a 9-to-5 job and you'll walk out the door at the end of the week or at the end of the month with a healthy bank balance and a constant paycheck that ends up in your bank account. For all the downsides, however, it's a particularly interesting career. It's a fun career because every day is completely different. It's not like you get up, you go to chambers, you do some paperwork, you leave at 6, you go back and do some more paperwork the following day, because in a chambers like mine, every day you're in court. So when your clerks ring you on Friday evening at 6 o'clock and say, here's what you're doing on Monday, you know full well in my chambers, as all of the junior tenants do, that you won't be leaving court until about 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, because there's so much work in chambers at the moment. And I think that's, in essence, one of the reasons why the bar is, in particular in my chambers, healthy, because there is a lot of work out there. As Andrew's already said, people commit crimes. People who commit crimes are normally prosecuted by people like those in my chambers, and are also defended by people like the members of chambers we have. And in the set I'm in, it's not limited to London. There's always discussions about, if you're London Council, does that mean you're restricted to the M25? And certainly, as someone in chambers has said this week, if you join the bar, you see the world. And certainly in my set, you do that, because you may well find your Monday in Norwich, your Tuesday in Lincoln, your Thursday in Nottingham, and your Friday in perhaps inner London. So it's a diverse profession with a lot of work out there for people that are hoping to join it. And certainly, having been part of this profession and part of this particular area of the bar for the past 4 years, once you get over those initial hurdles of pupillage, once you get over those initial hurdles of gaining tenancy, you start to see your bank balance increase rather than decrease. And you start to see your job satisfaction follow the same pattern, because, as Andrew said, the criminal bar is unique in one sense, because everybody is supportive of each other. Everybody wants to get on with each other, because, as Andrew said, you might spend one day on one side of the fence, but the following day you could be have switched positions and find yourself defending in exactly the same circumstances that your opponent may have been the day before. And certainly if you fall out with someone on one day, they're not going to forget it the following day when you return. So it is a tough career to break into. It is a tough profession to work in. But having said that, I think the rewards of knowing that at the end of the week you've done your best for a client, be it prosecuting or defending, and the feeling when someone that you expected to go into prison doesn't, on account of what you've done, or someone who was looking like they might end up with a conviction at the start of the trial then gets acquitted, it is a feeling that I don't think you can replicate in any other walk of life or in any other career. And it's that drive and motivation, coupled with the fact that you earn a few pounds for doing it, that I think draws people like you and people like me, and allows people like Andrew to continue waking up every day and doing exactly the same job that Andrew did probably just after I was born, and me for the last 4 years. But certainly I wouldn't want this career fair or pupillage fair to put anybody off joining the bar. There are positives, there are negatives, but I'm pretty sure that's what happens in every particular career path and in every particular area of law at the bar. So certainly, I think I've probably echoed Andrew, probably copied him quite a bit as well, but certainly don't be dissuaded from joining the criminal bar.
Have any of you seen the BBC4 series The Prosecutors is on at the moment? If you watched the episode this week, I was counsel for the defence in the trial of David Hoyle, who featured in this week's episode, the Facebook murderer. The trial was up in Chester in Christmas of 2014. Wasn't quite the trial I remembered watching it on the television, but that was an example of having to deal with somebody who was vile, it's the only way I could describe it, who butchered somebody, but wanted us to defend him, and having to advance his particular version of events to the best of our abilities over an extraordinarily stressful fortnight. It took the jury under an hour to convict him of murder of a woman who he stabbed 27 times and broke 4 wine bottles over her head. For me, and the most remarkable thing that happened in that trial was the fact that the victim's family came up to us afterwards and thanked us for the sensitive way in which we'd conducted his defence. So, as I said, I don't lose that much sleep at night. There are some fairly unique challenges that will present themselves to you over the years at the criminal bar. I think one thing I would say, from leading on from Ben's comments, is that you've got to be flexible. If you are a person who likes structure and order in your life, the criminal bar is not for you, because at 10 o'clock in the morning your diary may look very, very different for tomorrow than it does at 4 o'clock. And the last minute phone call from the clerk telling, actually, no, you're not in Isleworth tomorrow, you're in Cardiff for 4 days, does happen. I spent most of 2014 in Manchester. I've spent most of this year last year in Southwark. It's just the way things go. It is a big criminal set. We have 75 members, about half of which do practice in the criminal area. There's a lot of work, and it is national, because you develop a national reputation. So if you are somebody for whom 9 to 5 and knowing where you're going to be in any given week appeals, then the criminal bar really is not for you. Similarly, if you are a lone wolf, again, I would suggest the criminal bar is not for you. It is about developing relationships, but also having the confidence in yourself.
I think that's right, and there are, despite all of the advantages of joining the criminal bar, there are of course some negatives that we've already touched on. Certainly, flexibility is one thing. As Andrew said, if you wake up and see your diary says one thing, by the end of the day it might even be different, because you may have found yourself on a different train to the one you thought you were getting at lunchtime. Certainly, social lives are a little bit more difficult to maintain at the criminal bar, because if you have got a dinner appointment at 7 o'clock in central London and you find yourself at 5 minutes past 6 in Manchester, it doesn't really work out, and unfortunately that's part and parcel of the job. Chambers like ours are incredibly busy all over the country, and the cases that are dealt with, be it the murders, be it the conspiracies, be it the drugs importations, or whatever they may be, don't all focus or take place in London. There are cases up and down the country, and you build connections in chambers with solicitors up and down the country. And of course, junior members of chambers like myself are expected to go and cover the odd hearings for more senior members of chambers. And it's something you do, be it at Lincoln, be it in Sheffield, or be it in Nottingham.
Lincoln's lovely because it's inside a castle.
It is a very very pleasant
bizarre
call. Yeah, which is probably why I remember it.
Yeah,
but,
it's a great call.
But certainly, that has its own problems. If you like being on the tube to a central London office at 8 in the morning, then the bar's probably not for you. When you, the reality is, you'll be on the 5 o'clock train to Nottingham or Sheffield. It's something you've got to factor into in much the same way. That leads on again, because you're all, or most criminal barristers are, self-employed practitioners. So as part of that, you're putting up your own money at the start of it. So when you are told you're going to Nottingham or Sheffield, it's your bank balance that takes the hit initially to get the train fare up there, and to get the all of your expenses in order to do that. And you'll obviously get paid when everyone else gets paid a few months down the line, when the legal aid agency or the CPS pay that final bill. So it's another consideration you've got to factor in. However, having said that, cash flow, albeit potential could be a potential problem at the start of your career when you just finish pupillage and your fees may not be coming in as quickly as you might hope. After only a few months, I think it's fair to say, certainly in the set I'm at, that cash flow doesn't appear to have such quite the same disadvantages as it did a few months before that. And certainly I've had no difficulties in the past 3 years with debt collectors at my door or anything like that, and certainly I seem to be making some money, and I think that's generally the course that's being adopted across the criminal bar. And as I say, we're not in the situation where we're all going hand in cap and hoping that someone will put some money in there, because that's not really the reality of the situation, and there is money to be earned by doing it. And as I said at the start, it's not going to be the money that other areas of the bar gain, but certainly it is a worthwhile and profitable career path to adopt, and certainly something that I wouldn't want to prevent anyone from doing because of that fear.
Of course, the other thing that has happened is that there's been an absolute explosion in the prosecution of serious sexual offences. The volume of CPS prosecutions of rape and serious sexual offences has increased, I would say almost exponentially, because they are more and more victims are coming forward. They're more prepared to actually take cases to trial, and those cases do proceed to trial because, generally speaking, the defendants do not plead. So they are increasingly filling up Chambers' diary. Certainly we have a huge volume of sexual offence work within Chambers that we struggle to cover. You have, by the way, to deal with, to prosecute rape and serious sexual offences, you have to be on a special panel within the CPS, and the CPS operate an advocates panel system where you are graded, and so the more the grading reflects the seriousness of the cases you can do. So as a second six people, you have to apply to be on the panel, and you will then enter the panel as a grade 1 prosecutor.
Yeah, so you start out as you spend your 6 months with your pupil supervisors, you shadow them around, and you find yourselves following the types of cases Andrew's involved in, the murders, the sex cases and all that sort of thing. And then the reality hits home then on day 1 of second six. You find yourself in Margate Magistrates Court or Camberwell Green Magistrates Court dealing with someone who's taken a Mars bar over the weekend or something of that nature, who's either having a first appearance and going to plead, or is going to absolutely deny that that's the case, and you're going to list it for trial despite it being a 69 pence Mars bar or something to that effect. But as Andrew says, quite quickly you start to gain experience, and you can apply to move up the panel. So you start yourself on the CPS side of things in panel 1, and you go and do the magistrates court list. So you get a bundle of documents the night before that you sift through for 4 or 5 trials that you're expected to prepare and deal with the following day. And as you move up through the panel system, you get more and more experience, the odd Crown Court hearing here and there, so a plea and case management hearing or a sentence or a mention or whatever it may be. And suddenly you can then start applying to join level 2, which is when you get the opportunity to then start prosecuting Crown Court trials, which, let's face it, most of these people in the room today, that's probably what you are angling for when you want to join a career or start a career at the criminal bar. The wigs, the gowns, the judges, the juries are basically what most people want to do if you want to become a criminal practitioner.
You can prosecute Section 18, can't you, as a level 2, I think?
Quite possibly,
yeah.
Quite possibly. But in addition to that, the fact that you join a criminal chambers doesn't mean that that's all you're going to do for your career, because criminal bar has so many overlaps with other areas of law that enable you to gain experience in other things as well. So, as I said at the start, in my chambers, not only do you get the opportunity to do the Crown Court work, the Magistrates Court work, but you can go off and do the extradition cases at Westminster Magistrates Court, and then the High Court appeals, which tend to follow. And likewise, you can go off and do asset recovery matters in the High Court for the NCA or for the Home Office or the HMRC. So it's a broad area of work, and I think it would be wrong to say that if you're at a criminal chambers, you're suddenly just doing Crown Court and Magistrates Court work, because it's such a diverse area, which again comes back to the flexibility of the bar, in particular the flexibility of the criminal practitioners, that you can be expected to cover such a wide spectrum of work, all of which has its own legal technicalities and complexities, which again make this job so rewarding, because every day is completely different, and every day you're looking at a new area of law, and every day you're looking at a new set of facts and something to grapple with for that day, for that 2-day trial or whatever it may be, or for the length of the case from its first hearing in the Magistrates Court through its eventual end, or to its eventual end rather, with a sentence or an acquittal in the Crown Court. So that in essence is why it's such a good career to
There's a lot of regulatory jurisdictions now. So you might appear before the General Medical Council in respect to complaints against doctors, before the Nursing and Midwifery Council in respect to complaints against nurses and midwives. You might be in a trading standards case. There are even people who both prosecute and defend before the Bar Standards Board. Shock horror. But there are lots of regulatory work. I do inquests, predominantly relating to deaths in custody, where the interests of the family of the deceased require separate representation. And now the scope for jury inquests has been broadened in relation to most deaths that occur in circumstances where public bodies such as London Transport or a railway company are involved. So that again is an increasing area in which the transferable skills of the criminal advocate can be applied to other types of hearings and other areas of law. So I totally agree with what Ben has said, that it is very much a transferable skill set, and I think we are very well placed to look at those new areas as they arise and move into them.